Hey ratepayers, it's Eric Lippman of Utility Reform Now. In the last video, if you did catch it, I was talking about how the beginning words of the Minnesota Public Utilities Act raised four key questions, the ones that the legislature wanted the PUC to focus on, and that with regret, as explained in the last video, we're not really focusing on the things that the legislature wanted us to do when we're involved, or at least government officials are involved, in reviewing rate increase proposals. But there's another key statute that's involved, is involved in the rate-making process. Whenever there's an administrative law judge or the commission wants to develop rules about its operations, it does so under another statute called the Administrative Procedures Act. It's in Chapter 14 of Minnesota statutes. And just like the Minnesota Public Utilities Act, in the very beginning of the Administrative Procedures Act, this other statute, in the very first words, among the first words, in Chapter 14, the legislature, in a really helpful solid to all of us, said exactly what they had in mind. They described what they were seeing when they passed the statute and where they wanted to head when they were making and hoping for significant change. Let's tune in and see what they said. The legislature finds, it looked out and saw the kind of ways that agency officials were treating ordinary Minnesotans, and it found that some regulatory rules and programs, I bet you can think of which ones, have become overly prescriptive and inflexible, thereby increasing costs. Sound familiar? And those costs go to the state and local governments and the regulated community, like utilities, and they decrease the effectiveness of the regulatory program, exactly predicting, although this was 50 years ago, forecasting the videos you're seeing today, because we have high costs and inflexible system, and decreased effectiveness of the regulatory program around regulating utilities. And so, what did the legislature want us to do? Wanted state officials to do in the executive branch, and the PUC is, in fact, in the executive branch. Whenever feasible, state agencies must develop regulatory programs that emphasize superior achievement, not just regular achievement, not just phoning it in, not who cares, nobody's watching. We want superior achievement in meeting the agency's regulatory objectives. Also, when we're headed towards superior achievement, we want maximum flexibility for the regulated party, including a public utility. Okay? So, when we think about the GMG case and how it was treated in its rate-making process, exactly like Xcel Energy would be, really, again, remember a couple videos back, Betty Bureaucrat says, I can't tell the difference between the compensation arrangements at GMG and those for Xcel. Again, they were subject to the same process, had to incur similar kinds of costs in the hundreds of thousands of dollars, notwithstanding the fact that GMG is a very different natural gas company than Xcel Energy. GMG has 25 employees and 11,000 customers, and Xcel Energy has 5,000 employees and nearly 500,000 customers in Minnesota receiving natural gas service. These are not apples and oranges, these are apples and alligators. They're very different companies. Xcel is 47 times the size of GMG. These are not similar things at all. But again, for folks who are in the system, the Minnesota Public Utilities Commission, the Department of Commerce, the Attorney General, none of them could tell the difference between those companies. That's not superior achievement. In fact, it's highly inflexible, exactly what the legislature doesn't want. And again, if treating a 25-person company with 11,000 customers exactly like you would treat a 5,000-person a company with 500,000 rate-paying customers, if the process is essentially the same for both, obliging hundreds of thousands of dollars in costs, it's obviously going to be a great burden on the small base of ratepayers in the GMG case. And that's precisely what happened. 10% of the increase in rates was due to the government officials and their time in reviewing the application. This is a big bill being sent directly to the ratepayers for them to cost, because the system itself can't tell the difference. It's too inflexible, and it has absolutely increased costs. We have costly inflexibility, but what we want, what the legislature wants, what the legislature has wanted for 50 years, is flexibility and superior achievement. If you want greater flexibility and superior achievement out of your government officials, I'm hoping that you'll like, follow, and subscribe at utilityreformnow.com. utilityreformnow.com.